Hey there, welcome back, or if this is your first time here, welcome to a journey you might not be ready for. Tonight we're stepping into something a bit different. Ancient Rome. Not the marble statues and noble senators you see in movies, but the real Rome. The one that smelled like a sewer and looked like organized chaos. We're exploring what your actual day would be like if you woke up as an average Roman citizen around 150 AD. You probably wouldn't make it to lunch. Before we dive in, if you enjoy these stories and want to support what we do here, go ahead and hit that like button. Congratulations! You've just opened your eyes in the year 150 AD, in the heart of ancient Rome. The good news: you're alive. The bad news: you're about to wish you weren't. Your bed, if you can even call it that, is a thin straw mattress laid on a wooden frame. There are no springs, no memory foam, no Egyptian cotton sheets. Just rough fabric stuffed with straw that's been home to bedbugs, fleas, a lice, and possibly a family of mice for the past several months. The pillow under your head is a lumpy sack filled with reeds or wool scraps. It smells faintly of mildew and something else you'd rather not identify. Your blanket is a scratchy woolen thing that hasn't been washed in, well, let's just say never. You blink against the dim morning light filtering through the single small window, which has no glass because glass windows are a luxury reserved for the extremely wealthy. Instead, you've got wooden shutters that you keep closed most of the time because the street noise is unbearable and the smell even worse. Your home is an insula. A multi-story apartment building, crammed with families, built cheaply, and maintained poorly. You live on the third or fourth floor because that's all you can afford, which means you're far from the ground-level shops and dangerously close to the roof that leaks every time it rains. Your apartment is one room. Maybe two if you're lucky. No bedroom, no living room, no kitchen. Just one space where you sleep, eat, store your belongings, and occasionally entertain the idea of privacy before remembering that's not a thing here. The walls are thin. So thin you can hear your neighbor's every movement, every cough, every argument, every intimate moment. And trust me, they can hear you too. There's no soundproofing in ancient Rome. Just shared misery and zero personal boundaries. The floor beneath your feet is bare wood or packed earth. It's cold in winter, hot in summer, and always slightly dirty no matter how much you sweep. You try to sit up, and immediately every joint in your body protests. You're only 25 years old, but in Roman terms, that's pushing middle age. Your back aches from the terrible mattress. Your knees crack like old timber. Your teeth hurt because dental care consists of chewing on twigs and hoping for the best. Getting out of bed is an event. The room is freezing because there's no central heating, and the tiny charcoal brazier you use for warmth went out hours ago. You're wearing the same tunic you wore yesterday because you sleep in your clothes. Why? Because it's cold, and also because you only own 2 tunics total and you're saving the other one for special occasions. Like not smelling quite as bad. You swing your legs over the side of the bed and your bare feet touch the floor. It's gritty. There's always a layer of dust and debris no matter how often you sweep. Welcome to morning in ancient Rome, where you're never truly rested and the day hasn't even started yet. Now comes the part where nature calls. And let me tell you, the bathroom situation in ancient Rome is going to make you appreciate modern plumbing in ways you never imagined. There is no bathroom in your apartment. None. No toilet, no sink, no running water. If you need to relieve yourself in the middle of the night, you have a clay pot. A chamber pot that sits in the corner of your room collecting urine and feces until someone, usually you, has to carry it down 3 flights of stairs and dump it into the communal cesspit in the alley. Or, if you're feeling lazy or it's raining or you just don't care anymore, you dump it directly out the window into the street below. Yes, the street. This is so common that there are actually laws about it. You're supposed to shout a warning first. Aqua. Water. Though what's coming down is decidedly not water. But people still do it. Which means walking through Roman streets is a high-stakes game of dodging human waste raining from above. If you want to use an actual toilet, you need to visit the public latrine. The Horrify. It's a short walk from your insula, assuming you don't get splashed by falling waste on the way. The public latrine is a large room with stone benches lining the walls. These benches have holes cut into them, evenly spaced, where you sit to do your business. Directly beneath these holes runs a channel of flowing water, an open sewer that's supposed to carry waste away. Supposed to. In reality, it's often clogged, overflowing, and absolutely rancid. Here's the social part. There are no stalls. No dividers. No privacy whatsoever. You sit shoulder to shoulder with strangers, merchants, soldiers, beggars, all of you conducting your private business in very public view. Some people chat. Some read. Some just stare straight ahead and try to pretend this isn't happening. And toilet paper. Never heard of it. Instead, there's a communal sponge on a stick called a tossorium. You use it to wipe, then rinse it in the flowing water channel, and leave it for the next person. Yes, you're sharing a wiping sponge with dozens of strangers every single day. The same sponge that's been used by who knows how many other people. Rinsed in the same contaminated water. This is not a joke. This is actual Roman sanitation. You finish your business, use the sponge with as little thought as possible because thinking about it will ruin your day, and head back outside. The streets are already filling with people. Merchants setting up stalls. Slaves hauling water from public fountains. Wagons rumbling over cobblestones because wheel traffic is banned during the day, so everything gets delivered at night, which means you barely slept anyway. The noise is constant. Shouting, hammering, animals, the clatter of wooden shoes on stone. The smell is overwhelming. A thick mixture of human waste, rotting garbage, animal dung, smoke from cooking fires, and the sour tang of the Tiber River, which is essentially Rome's open sewer. You navigate the narrow streets carefully. They're barely wide enough for 2 people to pass. The buildings on either side rise 5 or 6 stories high, leaning inward, blocking out most of the sunlight. It's dim, claustrophobic, and vaguely threatening. Pickpockets work these alleys. So do muggers. You keep your head down and your hand on the small coin purse tucked into your belt. Not that there's much in it. You're not wealthy. You're not even comfortable. You're surviving. Barely. You make your way to the public fountain, where a line has already formed. There's no running water in your apartment, remember. So you need to fill a clay jug with water for the day. Drinking, cooking, washing. This one jug has to cover it all. You wait your turn, fill your jug, and carefully carry it back up 3 flights of creaky stairs to your apartment. You've already been awake for less than an hour. And you're exhausted. Now, let's talk about breakfast. Or the disappointing lack thereof. Romans don't really do breakfast. Not in the way you're imagining. There's no eggs and bacon. No cereal. No toast with butter. No coffee, because coffee won't be introduced to Europe for another 14 centuries and you'll be long dead by then. If you eat anything at all in the morning, it's leftover bread from yesterday. Hard, stale, possibly moldy bread that you dip in water or cheap wine to soften it enough to chew without breaking a tooth. Sometimes, if you're feeling fancy, you might have some olive oil to dip it in. Or a bit of cheese if you manage to save some. But more often than not, breakfast is just bread. Dry, flavorless bread. You chew slowly, because your teeth are already in bad shape and you can't afford to lose any more. Dental care in Rome is primitive at best. There are no dentists. If you get a toothache, you either live with it or find someone to yank the tooth out with pliers. No anesthesia. Just pain. Most Romans have missing teeth by the time they're 30. Their gums are infected. Their breath is terrible. Everyone's breath is terrible. There's no toothpaste, no mouthwash, no floss. Some people chew on twigs to clean their teeth. Others use a mixture of urine and pumice stone as a tooth powder. Yes, urine. It's actually recommended by physicians because the ammonia is supposed to whiten teeth. Does it work? Sort of. Does it make your mouth taste like piss? Absolutely. So you sit there in your dim, cramped apartment, chewing stale bread, trying not to think about the fact that you've got a full day of hard labor ahead of you and you're already hungry. There's no breakfast burrito coming. No mid-morning snack. You'll eat again at midday if you're lucky, and then not again until evening. This is your nutrition. Bread, occasionally some vegetables, rarely any meat. And your body shows it. You're thin, not in a healthy way, but in a malnourished way. Your skin is sallow. Your energy is low. But you can't rest. Because if you don't work, you don't eat. And if you don't eat, you die. Simple as that. Let's talk about what you're wearing. Because Roman fashion is not what the movies led you to believe. If you're a common citizen, a pleb, your wardrobe consists of a tunic. One tunic. Maybe two if you're doing well. It's a simple rectangular piece of rough wool or linen, stitched together at the sides with holes for your head and arms. No buttons. No zippers. Just fabric. It's dyed a muddy brown or grey because bright colors are expensive and you can't afford them. This tunic is your shirt, your pants, your pajamas, your everything. You wear it every single day. You sleep in it. You work in it. You sweat in it. And you almost never wash it, because washing clothes is a massive undertaking that requires boiling water, beating the fabric against rocks, and using a mixture of ammonia-rich urine and ash as detergent. Yes, urine again. Roman laundries, fulleries, collect urine from public urinals specifically for this purpose. So your tunic smells. It smells like sweat, smoke, street filth, and faintly of the garum fish sauce that splashed on it last week. If you're going outside, you might throw on a cloak. A rectangular piece of wool that you drape over your shoulders and pin at the neck. It offers minimal warmth and no water resistance, so when it rains, you just get wet and stay wet. Shoes are leather sandals. Simple, flat, uncomfortable. No arch support. No cushioning. Just strips of leather strapped to your feet. If you're poor, you might not even have shoes. You just walk barefoot through streets covered in God's know what. And undergarments. Forget about it. Most people don't wear anything under their tunics. Men go commando. Women might wear a simple breast band if they're modest. But the concept of underwear as we know it doesn't really exist. So you're walking around ancient Rome in a single layer of scratchy wool, with nothing between you and the elements except hope and a vague sense of dignity. You pull your cloak tighter against the morning chill and step out into the street. The day has officially begun. And it's only going to get worse from here. Work in ancient Rome depends entirely on who you are. And let's be honest. If you're listening to this, you're probably not a senator or a wealthy merchant. You're a laborer, a craftsman, a shopkeeper, maybe a baker, a blacksmith, a construction worker. You work with your hands. Long hours. Every single day. There are no weekends. No paid time off. No sick days. No retirement plan. You work until your body gives out, and then you die. If you're a baker, you're up before dawn, kneading dough, stoking the oven, producing loaves for the public. The work is hot, exhausting, and endless. If you're a construction worker, you're hauling stones, mixing mortar, building the roads and aqueducts and monuments that Rome is famous for. Except you'll never get credit for it. And you'll probably die young from the strain. If you're a shopkeeper, you're standing in a tiny stall at the front of your insula, hawking goods to passers-by who haggle over every single coin. There's no markup. No profit margin. Just barely scraping by. The streets are chaos. Noise everywhere. People shouting, animals braying, the constant clatter of activity. You're surrounded by bodies. Rome is packed. Over 1 million people crammed into a city that was never designed for this many. The insulae tower overhead, 5 or 6 stories of creaking wood and crumbling brick that could collapse at any moment. And sometimes they do. Building collapses are common. One day you're walking down the street, the next moment the apartment building beside you just crumbles into rubble, killing everyone inside. There are no building codes. No safety inspections. Just cheap construction and prayer. Fire is an even bigger threat. Roman insulae are tinderboxes. Open flames for cooking and heating, wooden structures, no fire escapes. When a fire starts, it spreads fast. Entire neighborhoods burn. People die by the hundreds. You just hope it's not your building. Not today. You keep your head down and focus on your work. Because stopping means not earning. And not earning means not eating. So you push through the exhaustion, the hunger, the pain. Just like everyone else. Let's talk about money. Because you don't have much of it. The Roman economy runs on coins. The aureus, gold, worth a fortune. The denarius, silver, a decent day's wage for skilled labor. The sestertius, brass, small change. And the as, copper, basically worthless. You, average Roman, earn maybe 3 to 5 sestertii a day if you're lucky. That's enough to buy bread, maybe some cheap wine, a bit of oil. That's it. Rent for your crappy one-room apartment. 200 sestertii a month. Food for a family. Another 100 at least. Clothes, shoes, medical care, emergencies. You can't afford any of it. So you go into debt. Everyone's in debt. Moneylenders prowl the streets offering loans at absurd interest rates. You borrow to survive, then spend the rest of your life paying it back. There's no social safety net. No welfare. No unemployment benefits. If you can't work, you starve. If you get sick, you die. Simple as that. This is the Roman dream. Work until you drop, then get tossed into a mass grave outside the city walls. Midday arrives. The sun is high and brutal. There's no shade in the narrow streets, just reflected heat radiating off stone and brick. You're sweating through your tunic, which now clings to your skin in the most uncomfortable way possible. You're thirsty. Desperately thirsty. But clean drinking water is hard to come by. The public fountains provide water, yes, but it's been sitting in lead pipes for who knows how long. Lead poisoning is rampant in Rome. It's in the water, in the cookware, in the cheap wine. Slowly, quietly, it's killing everyone. You just don't know it yet. You drink anyway, because the alternative is dying of dehydration. And at least lead poisoning is slow. You might get a few more years before the tremors and madness set in. If you want a break from work, you might stop by a tavern. A small, dingy establishment where workers gather to drink cheap wine and complain about life. The wine is sour, watered down, and served in a clay cup that probably hasn't been washed in days. But it's wet and it's alcoholic, so you drink it. Maybe you buy a small portion of food. Some bread, some cheese, a handful of olives. You eat quickly, mechanically. Then it's back to work. The afternoon drags on. Your body aches. Your hands are calloused and bleeding from the work. Your feet hurt from standing on hard stone all day. But you can't stop. Because everyone around you is working just as hard, and if you slow down, you'll be replaced. There's always someone hungrier, more desperate, willing to work for less. Competition is brutal. Compassion is rare. You're not a person in Rome. You're a unit of labor. A tool. And when you break, they'll just get a new one. The sun finally begins to set. The day cools slightly. The streets are still crowded, still noisy, but the energy shifts. People are heading home. Or to the baths. Or to the taverns. You're exhausted. Every muscle screams. Your head pounds. You just want to collapse. But first, you need to eat. Because you haven't had a real meal all day. And tomorrow, you have to do this all over again. Welcome to ancient Rome. The empire of marble and glory. Where the average person lives in filth, works themselves to death, and dies young. This is day one. And you're already broken. Sleep well, if you can. Welcome back to ancient Rome. If you survived yesterday, congratulations. You're tougher than most. Tonight we're diving into something every human needs. Food and cleanliness. Two things Romans approached with a fascinating combination of innovation and absolute horror. We'll explore what you'd actually eat as an average Roman, how you'd attempt to stay clean in a world without soap, and why the famous Roman baths were equal parts social club and petri dish. So settle in. Get comfortable. And let's continue this journey through the empire that conquered the world but couldn't quite conquer basic hygiene. The day is already underway. You've worked through the morning and early afternoon. Your stomach is growling. Loudly. You've had nothing but stale bread since dawn, and your body is screaming for actual sustenance. So you head toward the nearest popina, a Roman fast food joint. These little shops line the streets, serving hot food to workers who have no kitchen at home, which is most people. The popina is a small, cramped space. There's a stone counter with large clay pots embedded in it, each containing a different dish kept warm over a small fire. The air is thick with smoke and the smell of cooking oil, spices, and something vaguely fishy. That's garum. Fish sauce. The Romans put it on everything. And I mean everything. It's made from fermented fish intestines, salt, and thyme. Lots of thyme. The mixture sits in the sun for months until it breaks down into a pungent, amber liquid that Romans consider the height of culinary sophistication. To you, it smells like a dumpster behind a seafood restaurant in July. But you're hungry. So you ignore the smell and peer into the pots. One contains a thick stew of lentils and vegetables. Another has chickpeas cooked with herbs. There's a pot of barley porridge. And if you're lucky, maybe some small pieces of pork or chicken floating in a greasy broth. You point to the lentil stew. The shopkeeper ladles a portion into a wooden bowl and hands it to you. You pay a few copper coins and find a spot to stand. Because there are no tables. No chairs. You just eat standing up, right there on the street. The stew is hot. Too hot, actually. You burn your tongue on the first spoonful and spend the next few minutes trying to blow on it while people jostle past you in the narrow street. When you finally manage to eat, it's fine. Not good. Not terrible. Just edible. The lentils are mushy. The vegetables are overcooked. And everything, absolutely everything, tastes like garum. Because the shopkeeper dumped a generous portion into the pot, as is tradition. You eat quickly, mechanically. There's no savoring here. No enjoying the meal. You're refueling, nothing more. Around you, other workers are doing the same. Eating hastily, gulping cheap wine from shared cups, then rushing back to their jobs. This is lunch in ancient Rome. Stand, eat, leave. No lingering. No conversation. Just survival. You finish the stew and hand back the bowl. It probably won't be washed. It'll just be refilled for the next customer. Hygiene is not a priority here. You wipe your mouth with the back of your hand and head back to work. But later, tonight, you'll have a real meal. At home. If you can call it that. Evening arrives. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. You're finally done working. Your body aches. Your clothes are soaked with sweat. You smell terrible. But first, food. You climb the 3 flights of stairs to your apartment. Each step is an effort. By the time you reach your door, you're breathing hard. Inside, your family is already there. Your wife, if you're married. Maybe a couple of children. They're sitting on the floor near the small charcoal brazier that serves as your stove. There's no kitchen. No counter. No oven. Just a clay pot sitting on a metal grate over burning coals. Your wife has prepared tonight's meal. Pulse. It's a thick porridge made from ground wheat or barley, mixed with water and cooked until it reaches a consistency somewhere between oatmeal and wallpaper paste. This is the staple of the Roman diet. not bread. Not pasta. Porridge. Plain, boring, flavorless porridge. If you're lucky, there might be some vegetables thrown in. Cabbage, onions, turnips, beets. Whatever was cheap at the market. If you're very lucky, maybe a tiny bit of salted fish or pork fat for flavor. But meat is expensive. Most Romans eat meat only a few times a month, if that. Tonight, it's just pools with some wilted cabbage and, of course, a generous drizzle of garum. You sit cross-legged on the floor. There's no dining table. No chairs. You eat from a wooden bowl with a wooden spoon. The porridge is thick and gummy. It sticks to the roof of your mouth. The cabbage is limp and tasteless. The garum adds a salty, fishy punch that you've grown accustomed to but will never truly enjoy. You eat in silence. Because talking requires energy you don't have. Your children eat quickly, scraping their bowls clean. There are no seconds. This is all the food there is. When you're done, you set your bowl aside. It won't be washed tonight. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe never. You're too tired to care. Thirst is constant in Rome. The heat, the salty food, the physical labor. You're always thirsty. So you drink wine. But not the kind you're imagining. This isn't a nice Chianti or a crisp Pinot Grigio. This is Posca. Watered-down wine mixed with vinegar and sometimes herbs. It's sour, acidic, and barely alcoholic. But it's safer than drinking straight water from the aqueducts, which may or may not be contaminated. So you pour yourself a cup from the clay jug in the corner and drink. It tastes like disappointment. But at least it's wet. Your wife drinks too. So do the children. Everyone drinks Posca. Even babies are given diluted versions. Because clean drinking water is a luxury, and you can't afford luxuries. You sit there in the dim light of a single oil lamp, too exhausted to move. Your stomach is full but unsatisfied. You're not starving, but you're never truly satiated either. This is the Roman diet. Carbs, salt, and the occasional vegetable. Nutritionally, it's a disaster. But it keeps you alive. Barely. Now let's talk about staying clean. Or trying to. Because hygiene in ancient Rome is a complicated affair. You don't have a bathroom, remember? No sink, no shower, no tub. So how do you wash? Well, that depends on how much effort you're willing to put in. The bare minimum is a quick wipe down with a damp cloth. You dip a rag in a basin of water, scrub your face and hands, and call it good. This is what most people do most days. It's fast, it's easy, and it removes the top layer of grime. But it doesn't actually make you clean. Because there's no soap. Soap as we know it doesn't exist in Rome. There are some cleaning agents. Mixtures of ash and animal fat, that kind of work. But they're harsh and expensive and not widely used. So mostly people just rinse with water and hope for the best. Your hair is a greasy, tangled mess. You haven't properly washed it in weeks. Maybe months. You just tie it back and ignore it. Deodorant. Never heard of it. Everyone smells. All the time. Body odor is just part of life. If you want a real bath, you go to the public baths. The thermi. These are massive complexes with hot pools, cold pools, steam rooms, and exercise areas. They're open to everyone, even slaves and the poor. The entrance fee is just a few copper coins. So after days of accumulating sweat and filth, you decide it's time. You gather a small cloth, a scraping tool called a strigil, and maybe a vial of scented oil if you've saved up for it. Then you head to the baths. The walk takes you through the crowded streets, past the forums and markets, until you reach the imposing structure of the bathhouse. It's one of the few truly impressive buildings you're allowed to enter. You pay your fee and step inside. The first thing that hits you is the noise. The baths are packed. Hundreds of people, all talking, laughing, shouting. It's a social event. People come here not just to bathe but to network, gossip, exercise, conduct business. It's chaos. Controlled chaos, but chaos nonetheless. You make your way to the changing room. The appetiterium. It's a large space with niches in the walls where you're supposed to leave your clothes. There are no lockers. No security. You just strip, fold your tunic, tuck it into a niche, and pray nobody steals it while you're bathing. Theft is common. Very common. You've heard stories of people leaving with nothing but a towel. So you take off everything, including your sandals, and stand there completely naked among dozens of other naked strangers. There's no modesty here. No privacy. Everyone's nude. Men and women, though often the baths are segregated by time of day. You carry your strigil and oil into the first room. The palestra. It's an open courtyard where people exercise before bathing. Wrestling, lifting weights, running. The idea is to work up a sweat so the bath is more effective. You're already exhausted from a full day of labor, so you skip this part. You head straight to the caldarium. The hot room. The heat hits you like a wall. The caldarium is heated by a hypercaust, an underfloor heating system where hot air from a furnace circulates beneath the floor and through the walls. The room is sweltering. Humid. The air is thick and hard to breathe. In the center is a large pool of hot water. Very hot water. Almost scalding. You step in carefully. The heat is intense. Your skin turns red almost immediately. Around you, dozens of other people are soaking, scrubbing, chatting. The water is murky. Because it's not changed very often. Maybe once a day. Maybe less. And hundreds of people use it. So you're essentially bathing in communal body soup. Dirt, sweat, dead skin, oils. It's all floating around in there with you. You try not to think about it. You sit on the submerged ledge and let the heat soak into your aching muscles. It actually feels good. Despite the questionable water quality, the heat is therapeutic. Your body relaxes for the first time all day. After a while, you climb out and move to the scraping area. Because without soap, cleaning yourself requires mechanical action. You take your strigil, a curved metal blade, and pour some olive oil onto your skin. Then you scrape. Hard. The strigil drags across your flesh, removing the layer of oil, sweat, dirt, and dead skin. It's not gentle. It's borderline painful. But it works. The grime comes off in long, oily streaks that you flick onto the floor, where it joins everyone else's grime in a slippery, disgusting coating. You scrape your arms, your legs, your torso. Someone might help you with your back. Or you might just twist and do it yourself. When you're done, you're actually cleaner than you've been in days. Your skin feels raw but fresh. You head to the tepidarium next. The warm room. It's less intense than the caldarium. A transitional space. You sit, you breathe, you let your body adjust. Then finally, the frigidarium. The cold room. This is a shock. After all that heat, you plunge into a pool of cold water. And it's genuinely cold. Fed by aqueduct water that's barely above freezing. The cold hits your system like an electric jolt. Your muscles seize. Your breath catches. But after a moment, it's invigorating. Refreshing. You stay in for as long as you can stand it, then climb out, shivering. There are no towels provided. You either bring your own or just air dry. You stand there, dripping and cold, waiting for your body to stop shaking. Around you, the social scene continues. People lounging, chatting, conducting business deals. The baths are where society happens. Rich and poor, all naked, all theoretically equal. Though the rich still have slaves attending to them while you're doing everything yourself. You eventually make your way back to the changing room. You find your tunic, thankfully still there, and pull it on over your damp skin. It clings uncomfortably. But you're cleaner than you were. And that counts for something. You step back out into the evening air. The streets are still noisy. Still crowded. But you feel marginally more human. Let's talk about teeth again. Because dental hygiene deserves its own special mention. You've eaten all day. Porridge, stew, bread. All of it sweetened with honey or cooked with garum. Your teeth are coated. Your breath could stop a charging ball. But what do you do about it? Well, if you're wealthy, you might use a tooth powder. A mixture that typically includes crushed bones, oyster shells, charcoal, and yes, dried urine. Because Romans genuinely believe that the ammonia in urine whitens teeth. And they're not entirely wrong. It does have some bleaching effect. But it also makes your mouth taste like a public latrine. Most people don't even do that. They just chew on twigs. Specifically, twigs from certain trees that have a fibrous texture. You gnaw on one end until it frays into bristles, then scrub your teeth with it. It's the ancient equivalent of a toothbrush. Does it work? Kind of. It removes some food particles. But it does nothing for the decay already setting in. By your mid-20s, you probably have cavities. By 30, you're missing teeth. By 40, if you even live that long, you're eating soft foods because chewing is too painful. There are no dentists, remember. If a tooth is abscessed and infected, causing unbearable pain, your options are limited. You can go to a barber, who doubles as a surgeon, and have him yank it out with pliers. No anesthesia. No painkillers. Just a firm grip, a hard pull, and screaming. Or you can visit a so-called physician, who might try to treat it with herbal poultices, incantations, or drilling a hole in your jaw to release evil spirits. Spoiler alert! None of these methods work. And many of them make things worse. So most people just live with the pain until the tooth falls out on its own or they die from the infection spreading. Dental abscesses can kill you. And they do. Regularly. So enjoy that pulls, because it might be contributing to your early death. Back in your apartment, the evening settles in. The oil lamp flickers. The small brazier has been extinguished to save fuel. The room is growing cold. Outside, the city is quieting slightly, though Rome never truly sleeps. There's always noise. Always movement. Always life and death happening simultaneously. You lie down on your straw mattress. Your body aches in new and familiar ways. Your stomach is full of bland porridge. Your skin is clean, for now. You're exhausted. Completely and utterly drained. This is your life. Work, eat, bathe occasionally, sleep, repeat. There's no vacation. No hobbies. No leisure time, really. The baths are the closest you get to recreation, and even those are crowded, dirty, and vaguely hazardous. You close your eyes. The sounds of the insula surround you. Footsteps above. Voices through thin walls. A baby crying somewhere. The scurry of rats in the walls. This is home. This is comfort. This is all you have. And tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Let's talk about food storage. Because you can't just pop open the fridge when you're hungry. There is no refrigeration. Food spoils fast, especially in the heat of a Roman summer. So how do you keep things from rotting? Salt. Lots and lots of salt. Meat is heavily salted and dried. Fish is salted, fermented, turned into garum. Vegetables are pickled in brine. Fruit is dried or preserved in honey. Everything is either salted, dried, or fermented. Which means everything tastes either overly salty, tough, or slightly funky. Fresh food is a luxury. You buy it the same day you eat it. Maybe you get a fresh loaf of bread in the morning. Some vegetables from the market. A piece of fruit if you're lucky. But you eat it immediately, because by tomorrow it'll be wilted, bruised, or crawling with insects. Grain is stored in large clay jars. But it attracts weevils and mice. So every time you scoop out flour or barley, you're also scooping out bug larvae and rodent droppings. You sift it as best you can. But some always gets through. You eat it anyway. Because the alternative is starving. Honey is the only sweetener. Sugar doesn't exist. So if you want something sweet, you use honey. But honey is expensive. Most people can't afford it regularly. So desserts, sweets, treats. They're rare. Special occasions only. Mostly you just eat savory, salty, fishy food and accept that life is not particularly delicious. Wine is everywhere. It's cheaper than clean water. It's safer to drink. And it takes the edge off the misery. So everyone drinks. A lot. Alcoholism is rampant. But nobody calls it that. It's just normal. Children drink watered wine. Elderly people drink full-strength wine all day. Soldiers drink before battle. Workers drink during lunch. Drinking is woven into the fabric of Roman life. And maybe that's for the best. Because if you were facing this existence completely sober, you might not make it through the week. So you drink your posca, you eat your pools, you scrape the grime off your body at the baths, and you survive. That's the goal. Not happiness. Not fulfillment. Just survival. Welcome to ancient Rome. where glory and empire are built on the backs of people eating porridge and bathing in communal body water. Sleep well. Tonight we're exploring something Romans loved and modern people would find absolutely horrifying. Entertainment. When you think of ancient Rome, you probably picture gladiators, chariot races, grand spectacles. And you're right. Those things existed. But what you might not realize is just how brutal, how bloody, and how casually cruel Roman entertainment actually was. We're going to walk through a day at the games. The Colosseum. The arena, where 50,000 people gathered to watch other human beings fight to the death. And we'll explore why Romans considered this not just acceptable but essential to civilized society. So get comfortable. Because this journey into Roman leisure time is going to be anything but relaxing. It's early morning. You've been given the day off work. Not because your employer is generous, but because it's a public holiday. A festival day. And on festival days, everyone is expected to attend the games. Attendance isn't mandatory, technically. But if you don't show up, people notice. And in Rome, reputation is everything. The games are being held at the Amphitheatrum Flavium. The Colosseum. It's the largest amphitheater in the empire, capable of holding 50,000 spectators. And today, it'll be packed. You wake before dawn, because if you want a decent seat, you need to get there early. Seating is divided by social class. Senators and equestrians get the best seats at the front, close to the action. Ordinary citizens like you get the upper tiers, far from the arena floor. And slaves, women, and the poorest Romans are crammed into the very top, under the blazing sun with no shade. You grab a piece of bread for breakfast and head out. The streets are already filling with people, all moving in the same direction. Toward the Colosseum. The atmosphere is festive. Excited. People are laughing, joking, placing bets on which gladiator will win. Children are running ahead, eager to see blood. This is a family event. Whole families attend. Grandparents, parents, children, even infants. Everyone gathers to watch people die. You approach the massive structure and the scale of it takes your breath away. The Colosseum is enormous. For stories of arched entrances, marble columns, statues. It's one of the architectural wonders of the ancient world. And it's specifically designed for mass slaughter. You find your entrance. The vomitorium. Yes, that's really what it's called. The passageways that allow crowds to enter and exit efficiently. You climb the stairs to your section. It's already crowded. You squeeze into a space on the stone bench, shoulder to shoulder with strangers. There's no personal space. No assigned seats. Just first come, first served. The stone is hard and cold. You'll be sitting here for hours. All day, actually. The games run from morning until evening. And there are no bathroom breaks. Well, there are breaks. But if you leave to use the latrine, you'll lose your seat. So most people just hold it. Or relieve themselves right there in the stands. Yes, really. The smell in the upper tiers is not pleasant. The Colosseum fills slowly. 50,000 people take time to seat. While you wait, vendors move through the crowd selling snacks. Roasted nuts, dried fruit, bread, watered wine. You buy some nuts and a cup of wine, both overpriced. But you're going to be here all day, so you need something. The atmosphere is electric. People are chatting, arguing about which fighters are the best, speculating about what exotic animals might appear. This is the Roman version of a sporting event. Except the athletes are fighting for their lives. The sun climbs higher. The heat intensifies. There's no roof over the seating area, just a massive canvas awning that can be extended for shade. But it's not extended yet. So you sit in the sun, sweating, waiting. Finally, a trumpet sounds. The crowd erupts in cheers. The games are beginning. The first event of the day is the V-Nations. Animal hunts. This is when exotic animals are brought into the arena and slaughtered. Lions, tigers, bears, elephants, crocodiles. Animals captured from across the empire and transported to Rome specifically to be killed for entertainment. The arena floor opens. Trapdoors lift and a dozen men emerge. They're bestiarii. Animal fighters. Condemned criminals, slaves, or volunteers desperate enough to risk their lives for money. They're armed with spears, nets, sometimes nothing at all. Then the animals are released. Today it's lions. 5 massive lions, starved for days to make them aggressive. They charge into the arena, confused and terrified by the noise, the crowd, the unfamiliar environment. The bestiarii scramble to form a defensive line. The crowd roars. You find yourself leaning forward despite the distance. The first lion reaches a fighter. It pounces. The man tries to dodge but he's too slow. The lion's jaws close around his shoulder. The man screams. Blood sprays across the sand. The crowd cheers louder. You feel a strange, uncomfortable excitement. This is wrong. You know it's wrong. But everyone around you is cheering, laughing, pointing. So you don't look away. The other bestiarii attack the lion, spearing it repeatedly until it releases the wounded man and turns on them. The wounded fighter is dragged off by attendants. He's probably already dead from blood loss. No one cares. The show continues. Over the next hour, dozens of animals are killed. Some fight back, taking fighters down with them. Some just run in circles, trying to escape, while men chase and stab them until they collapse. It's not even a fair fight. The animals are exhausted, confused, outnumbered. It's just slaughter. But the crowd loves it. They cheer every kill. They boo when a fighter hesitates. They throw things at animals that don't perform aggressively enough. Children on their parents' shoulders point and laugh as elephants are speared, as bears are set on fire, as crocodiles are hacked apart. This is normal. This is entertainment. By midday, the arena floor is covered in blood and corpses. Slaves rush out with rakes and fresh sand, covering the worst of it. The animal carcasses are dragged away through underground tunnels. Some will be butchered and sold as meat. Waste not, want not. Next comes the executions. The meridiani. This is when condemned criminals are killed in creative and public ways. Because in Rome, execution isn't just punishment. It's theater. Men and women are brought into the arena. They're guilty of serious crimes. Murder, treason, arson, refusing to worship the emperor. Or at least that's what they've been convicted of. Justice in Rome is not particularly concerned with actual guilt. If you're poor and accused, you're probably doomed. The executions vary. Some prisoners are simply beheaded. Quick, efficient, boring. The crowd doesn't even pay attention to those. They want spectacle. So some criminals are tied to posts and mauled by animals. Others are crucified right there in the arena, left to die slowly while the crowd eats lunch. Some are burned alive. Others are forced to fight each other, unarmed, until only one remains. Then that survivor is killed anyway. You watch a woman tied to a post. She's young. Maybe 20. She's screaming, begging for mercy. A lion is released. It's not even hungry anymore after the morning's hunts, so it approaches slowly, almost lazily. The crowd grows impatient. They boo. Someone throws a piece of fruit at the lion to provoke it. Finally, the animal attacks. You look away. You can't help it. But the sounds are enough. The screaming. The tearing. The crowd's roar of approval. When you look back, it's over. Slaves are already removing the body. The show continues. Hours pass. The executions become monotonous. Death after death after death. You grow numb to it. Everyone does. That's the point. Romans believe that watching criminals die publicly reinforces social order. It reminds everyone what happens when you break the law. It desensitizes the population to violence. It turns citizens into spectators of their own brutal system. And it works. By the time the executions end, you feel nothing. Just hunger and thirst and the need to stretch your legs. But you can't leave. Because the main event is about to begin. The gladiators are coming. A trumpet fanfare announces the gladiator procession. They enter the arena in formation. 24 fighters, each representing different fighting styles. There are myrmidons, heavily armored with large shields and swords. Retiarii, lightly armored with nets and tridents. Thraces, with small shields and curved swords. Secutors, designed to fight the retiarii. Each gladiator is a specialist. Trained for years. These aren't random criminals. These are professional fighters. Some are slaves, yes. But others are freedmen who chose this life. Because successful gladiators earn money, fame, women throwing themselves at them. It's a brutal, short career. But for some, it beats the alternative. The gladiators parade around the arena. The crowd screams their names. Favorite fighters are celebrities. People bet fortunes on them. Women send them love letters. Children pretend to be them in the streets. This is the height of Roman culture. The gladiators stop before the emperor's box. Or the sponsor's box if it's not an imperial event. They raise their weapons and shout the traditional salute. Ave Imperator, morituri te salutant. Hail Emperor, those who are about to die salute you. The crowd goes wild. The first match is announced. A Murmillo versus a Retiarius. The fighters enter the arena, moving to opposite sides. The Retiarius is fast, lightly armored, carrying a weighted net and a trident. The Murmillo is slower but protected by a large shield and helmet. The crowd picks sides. Bets are placed. You put a few coins on the Murmillo because his armor looks more protective. The fighters circle each other. The Retiarius strikes first, casting his net. The Murmillo dodges, raising his shield. The net falls short. The Retiarius pulls it back quickly, retreating. He can't let the Murmillo get close or he's done. They circle again. The crowd is shouting advice, insults, encouragement. The noise is deafening. The Retiarius feints left, then throws the net right. It catches the Murmillo's shield. He tries to pull free, but the net tangles. The Retiarius lunges with the trident, aiming for the exposed neck. The Murmillo twists, taking the blow on his shoulder instead. Blood flows. The crowd screams. The Murmillo drops his shield, charges forward, sword raised. The Retiarius tries to backpedal but trips over his own net. He falls. The Murmillo is on him instantly, sword at his throat. The fight is over. The Retiarius raises a finger. The sign of surrender. He's asking for mercy. The decision is up to the sponsor. The editor of the games. Usually the emperor. But today it's a wealthy senator. The crowd weighs in. Some shout for death. Others for mercy. The senator looks around, gauging the mood. Then he extends his hand. Thumb out to the side. Mercy. The crowd is divided. Some cheer. Some boo. They wanted blood. But the sponsor has spoken. The Murmillo helps the Retiarius to his feet. Medics rush in to tend the shoulder wound. Both fighters leave the arena alive. You've lost your bet. But the Retiarius will fight again another day. That was a good fight. The crowd is satisfied. For now. But there are more matches to come. And not all of them will end mercifully. The next fight is a mass battle. 12 gladiators, divided into 2 teams. This is chaos. Swords clashing, shields splintering, men shouting. It's impossible to follow every duel. You focus on one fighter, a Thrax with a small shield and curved sword. He's quick, darting between opponents, slashing at exposed legs and arms. He takes down one opponent, then another. But then a Secutor flanks him, driving a sword into his side. The Thrax falls. He doesn't get up. Medics don't rush in. Because he's dead. The fight continues around his corpse. Another fighter falls. Then another. Bodies pile up. Blood soaks the sand. The crowd is frenzied. They are screaming, stomping, throwing things. This is what they came for. Actual death. Real stakes. By the end, only 4 fighters remain standing. They're declared winners. The dead are dragged off by slaves dressed as Karen, the ferryman of the underworld. It's theatrical. Ritualized. Death as performance. The bodies are taken to the spoliarium, a room beneath the arena where corpses are stripped of armor and valuables before being disposed of. Hours pass. Fight after fight. Some quick, some prolonged. Some fighters beg for mercy and receive it. Others fight until they physically can't continue. One gladiator refuses to fight at all. He just stands there, sword lowered, waiting to die. The crowd screams at him. The emperor orders him killed. An attendant walks up and stabs him in the throat. He collapses. The crowd boos. Not because a man died, but because it wasn't entertaining enough. You've been sitting here for over 8 hours. Your back aches. Your legs are cramping. You're sunburned, dehydrated, and exhausted. But you can't leave. Everyone around you is still engaged, still cheering. Leaving early would mark you as weak, unpatriotic. So you stay. The final fight of the day is announced. A legendary gladiator. A champion with 50 victories. He's fighting a newer, younger opponent. The crowd expects a slaughter. The champion enters the arena to massive applause. He's middle-aged, scarred, muscular. He moves with confidence. The younger fighter looks terrified. The fight begins. The champion toys with his opponent, letting him attack, easily blocking, demonstrating superior skill. The crowd loves it. They laugh as the young fighter stumbles, mock him when he misses. This is humiliation before death. But then something unexpected happens. The young fighter gets lucky. A wild swing catches the champion off guard. The sword slips past his guard and cuts deep into his thigh. The champion stumbles. Blood pours down his leg. The crowd gasps. The young fighter sees the opening and presses the attack. He's desperate, aggressive, and the champion is now defensive, hobbled by the leg wound. Another strike. Another. The champion falls to one knee. The young fighter stands over him, sword raised. The champion doesn't raise a finger. He doesn't beg. He just waits. The young fighter looks to the sponsor. The crowd is silent. This is their hero. Their champion. Surely he'll be spared. The sponsor extends his hand. Thumb down. Death. The crowd explodes in protest. But the decision is made. The young fighter hesitates, then drives his sword down. The champion falls. The young fighter stands there, stunned. He just killed a legend. He'll be famous. Or hated. Probably both. You sit there numb. You've just watched dozens of people die. Animals slaughtered. Criminals executed. Gladiators killed. And around you, people are discussing it like a sporting event. Arguing about technique, about who fought better, about whether the champion should have been spared. No one is horrified. No one is questioning whether this is moral or right. This is Rome. This is civilization. This is what separates Romans from barbarians. The ability to watch death and call it entertainment. The crowd begins to disperse. 50,000 people funneling out through the vomitoria. It takes an hour just to exit the building. You're exhausted, emotionally drained, and slightly sick to your stomach. But you'll be back. Because the games happen regularly. And attendance is part of being a good Roman citizen. You file out into the evening air. The city is buzzing with energy. People are heading to taverns to drink and discuss the fights. Children are reenacting the battles they saw, pretending to be gladiators. You head home slowly. The images replay in your mind. The lion tearing into that woman. The gladiator bleeding out in the sand. The casual cruelty of it all. But here's the thing. Tomorrow, you'll have forgotten most of it. Because this is normal. This is entertainment. This is what Romans do for fun. The empire didn't build itself on mercy and kindness. It was built on conquest, slavery, and violence. And the games are a reflection of that. A reminder that life is cheap, death is certain, and the strong survive. You climb the stairs to your apartment. Your family is already asleep. You lie down on your straw mattress, close your eyes, and try not to see the blood. Try not to hear the screams. Try not to think about the fact that you paid money to watch people die. And that tomorrow, if there were more games, you'd probably go again. Because that's what everyone does. And in Rome, conformity is survival. Welcome to the glory of the empire. Built on bones and blood. Sleep well, if you can. The games serve a purpose beyond entertainment. They're political control. The emperors know that a well-fed, well-entertained population is less likely to revolt. Bread and circuses, the saying goes. Give the people food and entertainment, and they'll stay docile. So the games are free. The grain dole is free. And the masses are kept distracted from the corruption, the inequality, the suffering. You're part of that system. You watch the games. You accept the free grain. You don't question why a handful of men own most of the wealth while you barely survive. You don't protest the constant wars, the slavery, the brutal justice system. Because you're too tired, too hungry, too entertained to care. And that's exactly the point. The games are genius in their cruelty. They channel the population's aggression outward, toward criminals and gladiators and animals. They normalize violence. They make death mundane. And they unite the crowd in shared bloodlust. Rich and poor, all cheering together as someone dies in the sand. It's equality through brutality. And it works. The empire stands. The games continue. And you go to sleep knowing that tomorrow, you'll wake up and do it all again. Work, eat, watch people die, sleep. This is life in ancient Rome. Glorious, brutal, and absolutely exhausting. Welcome back to ancient Rome. Tonight we're exploring something that touches every aspect of Roman life. The law, justice, punishment, and the rigid social hierarchy that determines whether you live or die based entirely on the circumstances of your birth. We'll walk through what happens when you're accused of a crime, how punishment is determined not by what you did but by who you are, and why your life as a common Roman citizen is worth significantly less than a senator's favorite dog. So settle in. Get comfortable. And let's dive into the legal system of an empire that prided itself on law and order while practicing neither fairly. It's mid-morning. You're working at your usual spot, hauling crates of goods from a warehouse to a merchant stall. The work is backbreaking, but it pays enough to keep you fed. You're minding your own business when you hear shouting. A commotion in the street. You look up and see vigils running toward you. The vigils are Rome's combination police force and fire brigade. They maintain order and respond to emergencies. And right now, they're coming straight for you. Before you can react, they grab you. Rough hands on your arms, yanking you away from your work. You try to protest, to ask what's happening, but they're not interested in conversation. They drag you through the streets while people stop to stare. Being arrested in Rome is a public spectacle. Everyone sees. Everyone judges. You're guilty until proven innocent. Actually, you're probably just guilty. Period. They take you to a holding area. A small, dark room beneath a government building. There are no cells, no bars. Just a locked room with a dirt floor and no windows. You're shoved inside with a dozen other people. Men, women, even a few teenagers. All accused of various crimes. All waiting. You ask someone what they're charged with. Theft, they say. They stole a loaf of bread because their family was starving. The punishment for theft can be anything from a fine to death, depending on who was stolen from. You ask another person. Assault, they claim. Though they insist it was self-defense. It doesn't matter. The victim was a citizen with connections. This person is doomed. Hours pass. No one comes. No one explains what's happening. You're not read your rights because you don't have rights. Not really. The Roman legal system is complex, sophisticated, and completely biased toward the wealthy and powerful. If you're a Roman citizen, you have some protections. The right to a trial. The right to appeal. The right to not be tortured without a conviction. If you're a non-citizen, a slave, or a foreigner, you have nothing. You can be tortured, executed, or sold without any legal process at all. You're a citizen, thankfully. Born in Rome to Roman parents. So you're entitled to a trial. Eventually. Maybe. If the authorities feel like it. Finally, the door opens. A clerk calls names. Yours is among them. You're led upstairs into a large room. This is the Basilica. A public building where legal matters are handled. There's no courtroom as you'd recognize it. No jury box, no witness stand. Just an open hall where a magistrate sits at a raised desk, looking bored. Around you, other cases are being heard simultaneously. It's chaos. Multiple trials, multiple arguments, all happening at once in the same space. Your case is called. You step forward. The magistrate doesn't look at you. He's reading a document. Finally, he speaks. You're accused of theft. A merchant claims you stole goods worth 10 sestertii. You're stunned. You never stole anything. You've been working honestly, hauling crates for merchants. This must be a mistake. You try to explain, but the magistrate cuts you off. Do you have a patron? A powerful Roman who will vouch for you? No. You don't. You're nobody. Do you have witnesses? Yes. Your employer. But your employer isn't here. He wasn't notified. He doesn't even know you've been arrested. The magistrate nods. The accuser is present. A merchant you recognize. You've worked for him in the past. But you never stole from him. He steps forward, smug and confident. He claims he saw you take a small sack of grain. It's a lie. You know it's a lie. But you can't prove it. In Roman law, the burden of proof is complicated. For citizens, technically the accuser must prove guilt. But in practice, the magistrate decides based on who seems more credible. And a merchant has more credibility than a laborer. You plead your case. You explain that you've never stolen anything. That you were working elsewhere when the theft supposedly occurred. That this merchant is lying, possibly to avoid paying you for work you did. The magistrate listens with half an ear. He's already heard 20 cases this morning. He's tired. He doesn't care. He asks the merchant if he's certain of his accusation. The merchant swears on the gods, yes, absolutely. The magistrate looks at you. Can you pay a fine? No. You barely have enough money for rent and food. The magistrate sighs. He pronounces you guilty. The punishment is flogging and restitution. 20 lashes and repayment of double the value of the stolen goods. You try to protest, but guards are already pulling you away. The trial lasted less than 5 minutes. You've been convicted of a crime you didn't commit. And there's no appeal. Not for someone like you. Outside the basilica, you're taken to a post in the forum. A public space where punishments are carried out for everyone to see. They strip your tunic to the waist. Bind your wrists to the post. And the flogging begins. The first strike of the whip feels like fire across your back. You gasp. Can't help it. The pain is intense, immediate. The whip is made of leather strips, sometimes embedded with metal or bone fragments. It's designed to tear flesh. The second strike. The third. You lose count after 10. The pain blurs into a continuous agony. You can feel blood running down your back. Warm and sticky. Around you, people walk past. Some stop to watch. Others don't even glance over. Public flogging is common. Unremarkable. You're just another criminal getting what he deserves. When it's finally over, they untie you. You collapse. Your back is shredded. The pain is overwhelming. No one helps you up. No one tends your wounds. You're expected to just walk away and resume your life. Which you do. Slowly. Painfully. You pull your tunic back on. The rough fabric sticks to the bleeding wounds. Every movement is agony. You stumble home, barely able to walk. Your family is horrified when they see you. Your wife tries to clean the wounds with water and cloth. But there's no medicine. No painkillers. No antibiotics. If the wounds get infected, you'll die. Simple as that. You lie on your stomach on the straw mattress. Unable to move without pain shooting through your entire body. And you still owe the merchant 20 sestertii. Money you don't have. He'll come for it. And if you can't pay, he can have you enslaved. Debt slavery is legal in Rome. If you owe money and can't repay, the creditor can claim you as property until the debt is worked off. Which often means forever. Because enslaved people earn nothing. So the debt never decreases. This is Roman justice. Swift, brutal, and utterly indifferent to actual guilt or innocence. What matters is power. Connections. Money. If you have those things, you can literally get away with murder. If you don't, you can be executed for stealing bread. The hierarchy is everything. At the top, senators. Men of immense wealth and political power. They own estates, slaves, businesses. They make the laws. They can't be arrested without approval from the Senate. They can't be tortured or executed without trial. They're essentially above the law. Below them, equestrians. The wealthy merchant class. They have money but less political power. Still, they have significant legal protections. They can hire lawyers, bribe judges, make problems disappear. Then come ordinary citizens. Plebs like you. Free, technically protected by law, but practically vulnerable to anyone above you in the hierarchy. You can be arrested, tried, and punished with minimal evidence. Your word means little against someone wealthier. Below you, freedmen. Former slaves who've earned or bought their freedom. They're citizens, technically. But they're marked forever by their past. They have fewer rights, less respect, and can be re-enslaved under certain conditions. And at the very bottom, slaves. Millions of them. Property. Not people. They have no rights, no protections, no legal standing. They can be beaten, raped, killed, and it's not even a crime. It's just property damage. This system is maintained through violence, law, and social conditioning. Everyone accepts their place because challenging it is futile and dangerous. Let's talk about what happens to people who break the law in more serious ways. Murder, treason, arson, sacrilege. The punishments make flogging look merciful. If you're a citizen convicted of murder, you might be exiled. Sent away from Rome, forbidden to return under penalty of death. Your property is confiscated. Your family is disgraced. But at least you're alive. If you're a non-citizen or slave convicted of murder, you're executed. Methods vary. Beheading if you're lucky. Quick, relatively painless. Crucifixion if you're not. Slow, agonizing, public. Crucifixion is reserved for the lowest criminals. Slaves, rebels, enemies of the state. You're nailed or tied to a wooden cross and left to die over days. The cause of death is usually asphyxiation. As your body weakens, you can't support yourself. Your diaphragm compresses. You suffocate slowly. Sometimes they break your legs to speed it up, so you can't push yourself up to breathe. It's designed to be as painful and humiliating as possible. And it happens regularly. The roads leading into Rome are lined with crosses. Warnings to anyone who might consider rebellion. Arson is particularly serious because fire in Rome is catastrophic. Buildings are wooden, close together, fire spreads fast. So arsonists are executed publicly and creatively. Sometimes burned alive. Sometimes torn apart by animals in the arena. The punishment must fit the crime's social impact. Treason, plotting against the emperor or the state, is the ultimate crime. And the punishment is damnatio ad bestias. Condemnation to beasts. You're thrown into the arena, unarmed, to be killed by lions, bears, or other animals. It's a public spectacle. Entertainment and execution combined. Your death serves multiple purposes. Punishment, deterrent, and amusement. Efficiency. There's also damnatio memoriae. Damnation of memory. Your name is erased from all records. Your statues are destroyed. Your family is forbidden from speaking your name. You're wiped from history as if you never existed. This is applied to traitors, failed emperors, anyone who seriously threatens the social order. It's death that extends beyond the grave. Eternal punishment. Romans take their justice seriously. They just don't apply it equally. Slavery deserves special attention. Because it's the foundation of the Roman economy. Millions of people, captured in war, born into slavery, or sold into it through debt. They work the farms, build the buildings, serve in wealthy households, fight in the arenas. They're everywhere. Essential. Invisible. The treatment of slaves varies wildly. Some wealthy households treat their slaves relatively well. Feed them, house them, occasionally free them after years of service. Other owners are brutal. Slaves are beaten for minor infractions, worked to death, sexually abused without consequence. Because they're property. You can't prosecute someone for damaging their own property. Slaves who run away, if caught, are branded. A hot iron pressed into their forehead marking them as fugitive. Forever scarred. Forever marked. Slaves who kill their master, even in self-defense, trigger the senator's consultum silenianum, a law that requires the execution of every slave in the household. If one slave kills the master, all the slaves die. Dozens, sometimes hundreds of people. Crucified. This happened in 61 AD. A senator was murdered by one of his slaves. 400 household slaves were executed. Men, women, children. All of them. The public protested. Not because it was unjust, but because it seemed excessive. But the Senate upheld the law. Because the alternative, showing mercy, might encourage other slaves to rebel. Fear is control. Brutality is policy. And the empire runs on both. You recover slowly from your flogging. The wounds heal, more or less. They'll scar. You'll carry those marks for the rest of your life. A permanent reminder of Roman justice. The merchant never comes for his money. Maybe he forgot. Maybe he died. Maybe he got what he wanted, your suffering. You return to work. No one asks what happened. The scars on your back speak for themselves. You keep your head down, work harder, try not to attract attention. Because you've learned a valuable lesson. In Rome, you're only as safe as you are invisible. The law protects those at the top and crushes those at the bottom. And you're at the bottom. One evening, you witness something that crystallizes everything. A senator's carriage is racing through the narrow streets. Reckless, dangerous. A child, maybe 6 years old, runs into the street. The carriage hits him. The child is killed instantly. The senator's driver doesn't even stop. The carriage continues, disappearing around a corner. The child's mother rushes out, screaming, cradling her dead son. A crowd gathers. People are angry, shouting. Someone says they should report this to the vigils. Someone else laughs bitterly. Report what? A senator killed a pleb's child. Nothing will happen. Senators are immune from prosecution for most crimes. Even if charges were brought, the senator would claim the child ran into the street. His word against no one's. Case closed. The mother is left holding her dead child. No justice. No compensation. No accountability. Just grief. You walk away. Because there's nothing to be done. This is Rome. This is how it works. The powerful do as they please. The powerless suffer. And the law, that great Roman achievement, protects only those who don't need protection. Later that night, lying on your straw mattress, you think about the child. About the flogging you received for a crime you didn't commit. About the slaves crucified for someone else's crime. About the whole rotten system held together by violence and inequality. And you realize something. You wouldn't last a day in ancient Rome. Not as a modern person with modern values. Not with expectations of justice, fairness, human rights. Those concepts don't exist here. Here, might makes right. Birth determines destiny. And the law is just another tool of oppression. You've already lasted longer than you thought you would. But at what cost? You're scarred, traumatized, disillusioned. You've watched people die for entertainment. Been falsely convicted and brutally punished. Seen the casual cruelty of the powerful go unchecked. This is the glory of Rome. The civilization that gave the world aqueducts and roads and law codes. The same civilization that enslaves millions, executes thousands, and grinds the common people into dust. The same civilization that future generations will romanticize, admire, try to emulate. And you're living it. Every brutal, unfair, exhausting day of it. Sleep eventually comes. Fitful and disturbed. You dream of the child in the street. Of the slaves on crosses. Of the magistrate's indifferent face. Of justice that never comes. The next morning, you wake to the same reality. Work, survive, avoid trouble. The hierarchy remains. The law remains. The inequality remains. Nothing changes. Because change is dangerous. Challenging the system gets you killed. So you don't challenge it. You accept it. Like everyone else. You become complicit in your own oppression. Because the alternative is death. And you're not ready to die. Not yet. So you put on your tunic. Ignore the pain in your back. And go to work. Just another day in ancient Rome. Where justice is a luxury you can't afford. Where law protects the powerful and punishes the weak. Where your life is worth exactly as much as society says it is. Which is very little. But you survive. Because that's what Romans do. They endure. They adapt. They accept the brutal reality of empire. And they keep going. Day after day after day. Until they can't anymore. And then they're replaced by the next generation. Who will endure the same. Accept the same. Suffer the same. Forever. This is Rome. Eternal. Glorious. And absolutely merciless. Welcome to the machine. Try not to get crushed. Sleep well, if you can. There's one more aspect of Roman law we should discuss. The legal status of women. Because half the population has even fewer rights than you do. Women in Rome are perpetual minors under the law. They're always under the authority of a man. First their father, then their husband, sometimes a male guardian. They can't vote, can't hold office, can't serve in the military. They can own property, technically. But they need male approval to manage it. A woman's testimony in court is worth less than a man's. In some cases, it's not accepted at all. If a woman is accused of a crime, she's tried and punished the same as a man. But she has fewer legal protections and less credibility. If a woman is the victim of a crime, her case depends entirely on her social status and the status of the perpetrator. A senator assaults a poor woman. Nothing happens. A poor man assaults a senator's wife. Death. The law protects status, not people. Marriage is a legal contract, not a romantic partnership. The husband has absolute authority. He can divorce his wife at will. She needs grounds and approval to divorce him. If a wife commits adultery, she can be killed by her husband. Legally. If a husband commits adultery, it's not even a crime. Just normal behavior. Women who step outside their prescribed roles, politically active women, independent women, are viewed with suspicion and contempt. They are mocked, slandered, sometimes prosecuted for immorality or treason. The message is clear. Stay in your place. Accept your role. Don't challenge the hierarchy. This applies to everyone. Men, women, slaves, freedmen. The system demands compliance. And it gets it. Through law, through violence, through social pressure. Rome is an empire built on strict order and brutal enforcement. It works. For the emperors, the senators, the wealthy elite. For everyone else, it's survival. Nothing more. And survival, in ancient Rome, is never guaranteed. Even when you follow all the rules, keep your head down, work hard, something can still go wrong. False accusation. Random violence. Disease. Fire. Building collapse. Any number of things can end your life without warning. So you live day to day. Hope for the best. Expect the worst. And somehow, despite everything, you keep going. Because what else can you do? This is Rome. This is reality. This is life. Brutal, unfair, and utterly exhausting. Sleep well, if the nightmares allow it. Welcome back to ancient Rome. This is our final journey together through the empire. And we're ending where most Romans ended. With death. Tonight we're exploring disease, medicine, and mortality in a world where a simple infection could kill you, where doctors practiced medicine based on superstition and guesswork, and where the average person died before reaching 40. We'll walk through what happens when you get sick, what passes for medical treatment, and how Romans dealt with death on a scale we can barely imagine. So get comfortable one last time. And let's face the brutal reality that in ancient Rome, death wasn't just common. It was inevitable, often painful, and frequently preventable by modern standards. It's been weeks since your flogging. The wounds on your back have mostly healed, though the scars remain. You've fallen back into your routine. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. But this morning, something's wrong. You wake up feeling off. Your head aches. Your throat is sore. Your body feels heavy. You ignore it. Because you can't afford to be sick. There are no sick days in Rome. If you don't work, you don't eat. So you drag yourself out of bed. Pull on your tunic. Head down to the street. But halfway through your morning shift, you realize this isn't just fatigue. You're actually sick. Your fever is rising. You're sweating despite the cool morning air. Your muscles ache. You try to push through, but eventually you have to stop. You sit down in an alley, head in your hands, trying to catch your breath. A fellow worker asks if you're all right. You're not. You need to go home. You stumble back to your insula, climb the 3 flights of stairs on shaking legs, and collapse on your mattress. Your wife is worried. She's seen sickness before. In Rome, disease is everywhere. And it kills. She fetches water, tries to get you to drink. You're burning up, shivering, alternating between hot and cold. This could be anything. Malaria, typhoid, influenza, plague. Any number of diseases that circulate constantly through Rome's crowded, unsanitary streets. There's no way to know what you have, and no way to effectively treat it. Your wife suggests calling a medicus, a doctor. But doctors cost money. Money you don't have. And even if you could afford one, Roman medicine is questionable at best. Roman medical knowledge is a mixture of legitimate observation, Greek theory, superstition, and pure guesswork. Doctors don't understand germ theory. They don't know about bacteria or viruses. They don't have antibiotics, antiseptics, or any real understanding of how disease spreads. What they have is the theory of the four humours: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Romans believe that all illness is caused by an imbalance of these humours. So treatment focuses on restoring balance. How? Bloodletting, purging, vomiting, sweating. All of which usually make things worse. But you're desperate. The fever is getting worse. So your wife scrapes together a few coins and sends for a medicus. He arrives hours later. A middle-aged man with an air of confidence that's completely undeserved. He examines you briefly. Feels your forehead, looks at your tongue, checks your pulse. Then he pronounces his diagnosis. Too much blood. Your humours are imbalanced. You have an excess of the sanguine humour which is causing the fever. The treatment: bloodletting. He pulls out a small blade. Not clean, just wiped off on his tunic. He makes a cut in your arm. Deep enough to bleed freely. Your blood drips into a bowl. He watches, nods, lets it flow. The theory is that removing the excess blood will restore balance and cure the fever. The reality is that you're already weak from illness. Now you're losing blood on top of it. After removing what he considers enough, the doctor bandages your arm with a strip of cloth. Not sterile, just cloth. He leaves you with instructions. Rest, drink water mixed with vinegar, eat light foods. Then he demands payment. Your wife gives him the coins. He leaves. You're worse off than before. The fever continues. The wound on your arm is now another entry point for infection. And you're weaker from blood loss. This is Roman medicine. Based on theory, not evidence. Confident, not competent. And often deadly. Days pass. You're not getting better. The fever rages. You drift in and out of consciousness. Your wife tries everything she can think of. Cold compresses. Herbal teas. Prayers to the gods. She makes offerings at a local shrine. Burns incense. Begs for divine intervention. Because when medicine fails, religion is all that's left. Your children watch from the corner, scared. They've seen this before. Neighbors who got sick and never recovered. Bodies carried out of apartments wrapped in sheets. Death is not abstract in Rome. It's constant, visible, traumatic. And now it might be coming for their father. You're vaguely aware of conversations happening around you. Your wife talking to a neighbor. Maybe we should take him to a temple. Asclepius might heal him. Temple medicine is another option in Rome. Shrines to Asclepius, the god of healing, where sick people go to sleep and receive divine visions of cures. Sometimes priests administer treatments. Sometimes they just take your offerings and send you home to die. It's a gamble. Like everything in Rome. But you're too weak to move. Too far gone to travel. So you stay in your apartment, burning with fever, while your body fights a battle it doesn't understand against an enemy no one can see. Then, on the 5th day, something changes. The fever breaks. You wake up drenched in sweat but clear-headed. The worst has passed. Your body, somehow, fought off the infection. No thanks to the doctor. No thanks to the bloodletting. Just your immune system doing its job. You've survived. This time. But you're weak. Gaunt. You've lost weight you couldn't afford to lose. It'll take weeks to recover your strength. And you'll be vulnerable to the next illness. Because in Rome, there's always a next illness. Disease is the great equalizer. It doesn't care about social status. Emperors die of fever. Senators die of dysentery. Slaves die of plague. Everyone dies eventually. The only question is when and how. Rome's population is kept in check not by family planning but by disease. Infant mortality is staggering. 1 in 3 children dies before age 5. Mothers die in childbirth regularly. The average lifespan is somewhere between 30 and 40 years. If you make it past childhood, you might reach 50. But that's rare. Most people you know will die young. From disease, from malnutrition, from accidents, from violence. Life is short and brutal. Let's talk about some of the specific diseases that ravage Rome. Malaria is endemic. The mosquitoes that breed in the marshes around the city carry it. The symptoms are fever, chills, sweating, weakness. It kills thousands every year. Especially in summer. There's no treatment. Just suffering through it and hoping you survive. Typhoid spreads through contaminated water. Which is most water in Rome. Symptoms include high fever, weakness, stomach pain, headache. It kills through dehydration and organ failure. Again, no treatment. Just hope. Dysentery, inflammation of the intestines causing severe diarrhea, spreads rapidly through the crowded insulae. It dehydrates you, weakens you, kills you in days. Especially dangerous for children and the elderly. Tuberculosis, consumption as Romans call it, is a slow death. Coughing, weight loss, fever, bloody sputum. It's contagious, incurable, and fatal. People waste away over months or years. Then there's plague. Periodic outbreaks sweep through the empire, killing millions. The Antonine Plague of 165 to 180 AD killed an estimated 5 million people. Symptoms included fever, diarrhea, throat inflammation, and skin eruptions. No one knew what caused it. No one knew how to stop it. People just died. By the thousands. Bodies piled up in the streets. Funeral pyres burned day and night. The smoke from burning corpses darkened the sky. Survivors walked through cities that had lost 1/3 of their population. Businesses closed. Farms were abandoned. The economy collapsed. And then, eventually, the plague ran its course. The survivors rebuilt. Repopulated. And waited for the next epidemic. Because there's always a next epidemic. Rome's density, its poor sanitation, its constant influx of people and goods from across the empire, make it a perfect breeding ground for disease. The city is a petri dish, and everyone living in it is an experiment in survival. Injuries are almost as dangerous as disease, because infection is basically guaranteed. Remember those flogging wounds on your back? They could easily have killed you. Any break in the skin is an invitation for bacteria. And without antibiotics, even minor wounds can become deadly. A scraped knee, a cut finger, a blister. All potentially fatal if they get infected. You see it regularly. Someone gets a small injury at work. Within days, the wound is red, swollen, oozing pus. Within a week, they're feverish and delirious. Within 2 weeks, they're dead. From sepsis, gangrene, or tetanus. Simple infections that modern medicine could cure with a course of antibiotics. But here, death sentence. Roman surgeons can do some impressive things, actually. They perform amputations, remove bladder stones, repair hernias, even attempt cataract surgery. But without anesthesia, without antiseptics, without antibiotics. The survival rate is abysmal. Surgery is a last resort, because it's agony, dangerous, and often fatal. If you need an amputation, you're held down by multiple strong men while a surgeon saws through your limb. You're conscious for the whole thing. Screaming. The pain is indescribable. If you survive the shock and blood loss, you still have to survive the infection that almost certainly develops afterward. Most surgical patients don't make it. Childbirth is particularly deadly. Women die regularly during or shortly after delivery. From hemorrhaging, from infection, from complications no one understands how to treat. Midwives do their best, but their knowledge is limited. Their tools are primitive, and they're working in unsanitary conditions. If the baby is positioned wrong, if labor doesn't progress, if there are complications, the mother often dies. And frequently, the baby dies too. Women who survive multiple childbirths are considered lucky or blessed, because statistically, they should be dead. This is why families are large. You have 6 or 7 children hoping that 3 or 4 survive to adulthood. It's a numbers game. Reproduction against mortality. And mortality usually wins. Dental problems, as we've discussed, are universal and often fatal. An abscessed tooth can lead to an infection that spreads to your jaw, your throat, your bloodstream. People die from toothaches regularly. Parasites are another constant problem. Intestinal worms, tapeworms, liver flukes. They're acquired from contaminated food and water. They cause malnutrition, anemia, organ damage. Some grow to enormous sizes inside you. Feet long, called in your intestines. Causing pain, blockages, sometimes rupturing through the intestinal wall. There are treatments, sort of. Herbal concoctions that supposedly expel worms. Sometimes they work. Usually they don't. So you just live with them. Weakened, malnourished, slowly being consumed from the inside. Lead poisoning, as mentioned, is epidemic. From the water pipes, from cookware, from wine stored in lead-lined containers. It causes abdominal pain, headaches, memory problems, behavioral changes. Chronic exposure leads to organ damage, infertility, early death. But no one knows lead is the cause. So the poisoning continues, generation after generation, slowly degrading the health and cognitive function of the entire population. Mental illness is poorly understood and brutally treated. If you develop depression, anxiety, psychosis, you're considered possessed by demons or cursed by gods. Treatment involves exorcism, prayer, or being chained in a temple until you recover or die. If you're wealthy, you might be sent to a healing sanctuary for rest and mineral baths. If you're poor, you're just left to suffer or wander the streets raving. There's no compassion, no understanding, just fear and superstition. Elderly people, those who somehow survive into their 60s or 70s, are often in terrible condition. Arthritis, dementia, blindness, deafness. No pain management. No assistive devices. Just slow deterioration. Some families care for their elders. Others abandon them. Leave them to beg on the streets or die alone in their apartments. There's no social security. No pension. No elder care. You work until you physically can't. Then you depend on family charity. Or you die. When death finally comes, and it always does, the process depends on your social status. Wealthy Romans get elaborate funerals. Professional mourners, musicians, priests. The body is washed, dressed in fine clothes, displayed for viewing. Then either buried in a family tomb or cremated on a decorated pyre. The ashes are placed in an urn and interred in a columbarium, a building with niches for storing urns. It's dignified, respectful, expensive. For ordinary Romans like you, death is much less ceremonial. If you die, your family washes your body, wraps it in a simple shroud, and carries it to a common burial ground outside the city. Burial within city limits is illegal. So everyone goes outside the walls. If your family can afford a small cremation, they burn your body and keep the ashes. If they can't, you're buried in a mass grave. Dozens of bodies, stacked and covered with lime and earth. No marker. No memorial. Just gone. Slaves and the poorest Romans, if they die with no one to claim them, are thrown into mass pits. The puticuli. Literally, rotting holes. Bodies decomposing together in enormous communal graves. Sometimes these pits overflow, especially during plagues. Bodies are left in the streets, piled against walls, rotting in the sun. The smell is unimaginable. But eventually, someone comes to clear them away. Usually slaves, doing the worst job in the worst city. Romans believe in an afterlife. The underworld. Ruled by Pluto. It's not heaven or hell. Just a shadowy, joyless existence. All souls go there, regardless of virtue. The wealthy try to ensure a good afterlife by being buried with grave goods. Coins, food, personal items. The poor just hope for the best. Either way, once you're dead, you're forgotten. Unless you're famous, powerful, or wealthy. Then maybe your name survives. Carved on a monument, recorded in history. But for average Romans, nothing. You live, you suffer, you die, you're forgotten. As if you never existed. This is the reality that makes every day precious. Because you don't know if you'll see tomorrow. Disease, accident, violence, old age. Death is everywhere. Always waiting. So you live as best you can. You cherish the small moments. A decent meal. A warm bath. Your children's laughter. Because those moments might be your last. This awareness, this proximity to death, shapes everything. Romans are fatalistic. They accept mortality. They don't pretend life is fair or safe. They know it's not. So they build, they fight, they conquer. Not because they believe in immortality, but because they know time is short. The empire is built by people who know they're mortal, who work themselves to death building roads and aqueducts they'll never fully enjoy, who fight wars they'll never see the end of, who raise children who might not survive to adulthood. It's bleak, but it's also strangely beautiful. This determination to create, to build, to leave something behind even when you know you're temporary. That's the Roman spirit. Not the marble statues or the triumphant arches, but the quiet, desperate, heroic decision to keep going despite everything. You recover from your fever. You go back to work. You live. For now. You know you're on borrowed time. Everyone is. But you don't give up. You adapt. You survive. You hope. Maybe tomorrow will be better. Probably not. But maybe. And that maybe is enough to keep you going. Day after day. Until it isn't. Until your body gives out. Until disease or injury or age finally claims you. Until you become another body in a mass grave outside the city walls. Another forgotten Roman who lived and died in the greatest empire the world had ever seen. But tonight, you're alive. Scarred, tired, sick of the filth and injustice and brutality. But alive. You lie on your straw mattress. Your wife beside you. Your children sleeping nearby. The insula creaks and settles around you. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks. The city never stops. Never sleeps. Never shows mercy. And you're part of it. For better or worse. This is your life. Ancient Rome. Not the sanitized version from history books. Not the glorified empire of legend. But the real, brutal, exhausting reality. The Rome of crowded apartments and public toilets. Of contaminated water and dangerous medicine. Of constant disease and early death. Of inequality and injustice and casual cruelty. And also, the Rome of human resilience. Of families supporting each other. Of workers enduring impossible conditions. Of people finding joy and meaning despite everything. Both realities are true. Both are Rome. The glory and the horror. The triumph and the tragedy. The marble monuments and the mass graves. You close your eyes. Tomorrow, you'll wake up and do it all again. Work, eat, survive, sleep. The cycle continues. Until it doesn't. Until your story ends like everyone else's. Forgotten. Unmourned. Replaced. That's the final truth of ancient Rome. Individual lives don't matter. Only the empire matters. Only the glory of Rome. You're expendable. Replaceable. Insignificant. And yet, you mattered to your family. To your friends. To the people whose lives briefly intersected with yours. In the grand scope of history, you're nothing. In the small scope of daily life, you're everything. That contradiction defines existence in ancient Rome. Massive, powerful, eternal empire. Built on the backs of temporary, fragile, mortal people. People like you. Who wouldn't last a day in ancient Rome? But somehow did. Somehow survived. Somehow endured. Against all odds. Despite everything. Until they couldn't anymore. And then they were gone. And Rome continued. Eternal city. Built on bones and blood. Yours included. Sleep well. For the last time. In ancient Rome. This brutal, magnificent, impossible place. Where you never should have survived. But did. Until you didn't. Goodbye. And good luck. You're going to need it.